Okay, this is your second lesson for this essay, and it's going to be about how to take your brainstorming organizer and turning it into a paragraph. And this checklist here, writing a rough draft of body paragraphs, will help you do that if you follow it step by step. So the first step is to write our topic sentence, and we're going to do that by starting with step 3 on our brainstorming organizer. And you need the 3 things listed there. You need the title of the myth, the god or the goddess, and the character that is affected. Okay, and you're going to put it in a complete sentence. In the myth, and the title of the myth, the god or the goddess blank affected blank through his or her actions. And you could do this in any order. I'll talk about that in a second. So for now, we'll look at it in this order. So if we look at an example of a completed brainstorming organizer here, I picked Demeter. I don't think anyone picked Demeter because she's only in one myth. So she's in the origin of the seasons. Obviously, I just made that up. She's not really an Orpheus, a great musician. And then the god or goddess Demeter, the title of the myth, and the character affected is the farmers, okay? And so we have here, right, the step 3, we're just looking at the one myth origin of the season. So I have these highlighted in yellow to kind of match our PDF here, yellow, for our checklist. And so I did do an example paragraph, writing the topic sentence. In the myth, the origin of the seasons, Demeter affected the farmers with her actions, okay? So you could, again, put this in any order. So if we look back at the checklist, you could put it in the order, the goddess Demeter affected the farmers, do that second in the myth, origin of the seasons. You could say the farmers in the myth, the origin of the seasons, were affected by the god or goddess, Demeter. So again, you could put those in any order, and I recommend you do a different order for each paragraph. So if we continue on with our checklist, then the next thing is to add a transition word, such as first or in the beginning, and then provide the context for the actions that the god or goddess took in your own words. So in my case, it would be the actions Demeter took that affected the farmers. So if I look back at my organization here, that's this first box under part A, right? So under part A, describe the action the god or goddess took that affected the other character. And so I had written in here that she stopped working, causing the crops to die and not grow, and that's what affected the farmers. So I'm going to put this now into a complete sentence in my example with a transition. So my transition word here in blue, it started when, okay, so that's my transition. Demeter stopped performing her role as harvest goddess, which caused the crops to die. And I'm just going to, this is fine as it is, so I'm just going to dismiss that. Which caused the crops to die. The farmers could no longer grow food. So I kind of took what was in here, right, and I expanded it out just a little bit, made 2 nice complete sentences with that information, with the transition in front of it, okay? And then if I go back to my checklist, the next thing, and I give you an example here. First, when Hera went in search of Zeus, she was met and detained by Echo. When she realized Echo was deliberately preventing her from catching Zeus in his bad behavior, she grew angry and she punished Echo, right? So that was what Hera did that affected Echo. So that's that first part here, is whatever the god or goddess did that affected the other characters. That's what you're describing. Then you're going to provide a quote that supports that, okay? And so that was on your brainstorming sheet. You were supposed to highlight a quote and number it 1, and you would now put it into our paragraph. I have the author wrote. So there's your introductory anchor. Then I say include quote in my example because you're going to put whatever quote you picked and then you cite it, the citation. And then we continue down our checklist to number 5. And I have an example of a full quote here with a citation if you need the example of how to do that. Number 5 is to add another transition word after, following, as a result, and then how the character responded. So maybe how Echo responded, or in our case, how the farmers responded. So if I look at my brainstorming sheet, that's my next box. How did the character respond? And I have written in here, the farmers prayed for help. So that's what I'm going to put in my paragraph. I have my transition: when faced with starvation, the farmers prayed for help. And then in my checklist, I say number 7, provide my quote. Quote number 2 that I was supposed to highlight from my brainstorming list, right? So if I go back to my brainstorming list, I was supposed to, after the farmers prayed for help, I was supposed to find a quote that supported that and number it 2, which I'm now going to put in my paragraph. The farmers prayed for help, the author wrote, whatever that quote is in the citation. And then I go back to my checklist for step 8, which is to add another transition word. This time is kind of a concluding one. So as a result, in response, consequently, subsequently, anything like that works. And then the long-term effects on the character or the characters from the god or goddess's actions. And again, this would be in my own words. So if I look at my brainstorming sheet, that's this right here, the long-term effect. Zeus heard them, brought Persephone back, which created seasons. So if I look at my paragraph, right, I have fortunately as my transition. Zeus heard them, he brought Persephone back from the underworld. Demeter could now perform her duties again, and the farmers could grow their crops. Okay, and then I need a quote to support that. My third quote that I was supposed to find and highlight and number. And so, again, that would have been this, number 3, highlighted quote number 3. That goes into my paragraph. The author wrote, the quote, the citation. And then on my checklist, the last thing is part 3B, right? What does the audience learn? And this really should take it kind of into our understanding of the Greeks. Like, what does that tell us about the Greeks? And on the checklist, I give you an example for Orpheus, right? That his failure to bring Eurydice back, and then because of the condition that Hades placed on her release from this, the reader learned that the Greeks saw death as being more powerful than love. Okay, so that's one thing I could interpret from that myth. If I look at my brainstorming organizer here, I said that it showed that the Greeks believed acting selfishly created problems for the entire society, for everyone living. So I put that into my, as my final sentence in my paragraph. Through the consequences of Demeter's actions, the reader learned that the Greeks believed that acting selfishly created problems for the entire society. So that would be my one paragraph, which I'm going to do tomorrow in class. And then the next day we would do the next one, and you'll notice here it says add a new paragraph by repeating this process for the second myth, starting with step 4. And it's the exact same process, but we do it for the other myth, which you'll do the day after tomorrow. And that would be, step 4, that second myth, right? Which I didn't fill in, but you would have had filled in, and you would go through and do it all the same to create your second body paragraph, okay? If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm here to help.